The American College of Radiology.
Focused forward.
Together.
Hi everyone, my name's Lydia, and this is a new series with the ACR. It's called Parenting and Radiology. This will be a YouTube series delving into a bunch of different topics within parenting and radiology. So today for our very first interview, we have Dr. Maryellyn Gilfeather. She is a fellow radiologist and parent who is here to provide her expertise and insight on the topic of family planning within radiology. So, Dr. Gilfeather, if you don't mind, could you spend some time just talking about your own experiences in parenting? When did you have children? Did you have any challenges during that journey? So go for it.
Well, thank you for including me. I always love to give advice, as Lydia knows, especially when I'm not asked. So it's always fun to be asked for some advice. Sorry, in the background, you'll hear meowing. That's my third child. My son, oh gosh, he just jumped on my lap, adopted a feral cat and brought him to our house to take care of. So now I have another child. So my story is I got married when I was a fourth year radiology resident. And so I finished my residency, and then my husband and I moved to Philadelphia we were both doing fellowships. He's a surgeon, and I was doing a 2-year radiology fellowship in MRI at University of Pennsylvania. And I think what I found, and I don't think this is unique, is that it's just really hard when you're a professional woman, and I think it's true in any profession. It's hard to find a good time to have a baby, because there's always a reason why it's not convenient, because you're certainly in radiology, you're in medical school, which is obviously, oh, my husband's just coming in. I think it's hard when you're in medical school because you have a lot of academic responsibilities. It's challenging when you're a resident as well, because you're trying to learn as much as you can. I think those times are very self-centered times, and not in a bad way, but you need to accomplish and learn a certain amount of stuff in order to be good at your field or to be successful. And their time is so taken up by that. It's just really hard to find a time to, be pregnant and have a baby and take care of an infant. So for me, my fellowship was 2 years, and I just happened to have my daughter on July 1st, right in between the 2 years of my fellowship, which was also hilarious because that is, as everyone knows, the first day of when all the interns and residents start. So the poor resident who had me as her patient was panicky that she had 2 doctors, my husband and me, to take care of, and she was just out of medical school. But anyway, I think, you want to make sure you're doing everything right as a parent. You want your kids to be well cared for, but you also want to be good in your career. You spent time and money, and you have the sense of dedication to be a physician, whatever it is. And you just are pulled in so many directions. So I think what happened to me is I ended up giving up everything in my life except for my training and my child. Like I'm a runner. So for 4 or 5 years when my kids were little, I didn't run. There just weren't the hours in the day. A lot of the social stuff you do with people, you just can't do anymore because it's literally a math problem. There just aren't that many hours in the day. And you want to be there for your kids when they take their first steps, when they utter their first word, so you're really torn. I do remember it was funny when I was a fellow, I got 6 weeks off for maternity leave. And at the time I thought, oh my gosh, 6 weeks, that's so much time. I'm going to be able to finish this paper I was writing. I was going to catch up on my journals, and if anyone out there has taken care of an infant, if you get a shower in during the day, that's a good day. So it was a surprise to me how little I could get done. But I guess with anything in life, anything that's challenging also brings great joy when you accomplish it, and my husband and I managed to raise two fabulous children who are now, my son's in the background here somewhere. He's 26 and a wonderful human being. Our daughter is 28. She's in LA, and she is also a fabulous person. We did it with a lot of help from other people. We had great childcare, really wonderful friends. Unfortunately, where we lived, I didn't have a lot of family to help out, but we certainly managed. And our kids are great kids, and I think they had great role models for parents. I think my son is a true feminist because he feels like women can do anything after being raised by a hardworking mom. And I think our kids admire us for what we've accomplished. But I think the challenging thing for sure was the time. And I also think, my kids are older, so I'm talking about the way people thought 3 decades ago, right? But I felt that at the time, you really couldn't talk about your kids much at work. You almost had to pretend you didn't have kids, because I felt like there was a difference. The men at work were allowed to brag about their kids. They could, show pictures of their kid at the baseball game or this and that, and everyone would be like, "Oh, what a good father you are." And I felt like if the women talked about their kids, everyone's eyes would glaze over and say like, "Oh, they're not serious about their job. They really, they're a mother first. Their job is as though it really mattered, that you couldn't do both." And I found that to be challenging too, because I really did feel like the men could brag about their kids in a way that the women that I worked with could not. So I don't know if that's still the case, but I do think it's probably still the case. I don't know. I don't think that's changed all that much. And then I think also some of my colleagues, the way a lot of radiology groups are set up, it's they're run very lean and mean. As most people know, it's hard to call in sick for anything, because if you do, usually someone else has to come in and help cover. I mean, it's very they're run lean and mean, so everyone makes a good living, and you go to work and you work hard for your shift. They're efficient and they're lean. So if your kid gets sick, I'm sure most people never take a sick day themselves, but it gets really challenging if your kid's sick and you want to be with them and you don't want to have a nanny take care of them. You don't want them to sit in the nurse's office at school. Or if your kid gets really sick, then it's a problem. So those are challenges too, or that were really tough for a while. And being a woman radiologist too, you know that even though the school has 2 phone numbers and 2 names, because your child has 2 parents, they will always call the mom first.
Yes.
And even though my husband and I have similar jobs, I was the one who got called and had to figure out how to take time out of work or how to manage my kid, and it's not the same for the men. Oh.
Well, thank you for providing kind of that unique insight and background, but also I think this is something that's very relatable to a lot of challenges that a lot of other radiologists will face, especially as women radiologists. So from your standpoint, kind of looking back, if you were to give advice to a medical student, and I know you said here, there's no easy time to start a family in kind of training, right? But is there a specific time that you think might be a little easier than others, if you had to have like a general say in that?
Yeah, I think if you can manage it during maybe your 4th year of medical school, like I know that you've done that, Lydia, and I'm really impressed. That's probably a good way to do it. The other thing, I guess it all depends on, maybe where you're living. Try and do it at a time where you think you can get some support. And the other thing is ask for help if you need it. Don't try and do it all on your own. Ask for help. Ask for help from, you know, hire more than one babysitter, you know, have one in reserve if you need to. Get your friends and family to help out when you need to. Just ask for help. Ask for help from your colleagues. Say that you know, I think in America, it's interesting to me that it's very hard for professional women to have babies. They make it so hard that most professional women I know have one or two and that's it. You know, it's just too hard. And maybe we just all need to be kinder to these women who are working so hard. It's hard. But in the end, as I said, you end up, my son's going to use a microwave in a second. Sorry. In the end, you know, it's a big win for everybody, but it's tough. And I would actually say of all the times in my life, I was, I guess, 32 when I had my daughter, Allie, and I was 35 when I had my son, Ted. And I would say the hardest time, though, was not in my 30s, it was my 40s. I think just beware that that's when your kids are in grade school. And I think that's when they really need you the most. But that's also when being a parent, being a professional is hardest as well. I think it's in your 40s. That's when you're climbing the ladder. You've got the most responsibilities. You're being promoted. You're being put on committees. And those two things really can clash. And I think my 40s were, I can't believe how hard I worked in my 40s. And then when I hit 50, it was awesome because it seemed like my kids, you know, were more on autopilot and things were a little calmer at work. So I think, but beware of your 40s. There are a lot of people are going to ask a lot of you in your 40s. And I would say my advice to people then is ask for help, or don't be afraid to spend money to get help. You know, spend money to have someone clean your house. So that's not one extra thing you have to do, you know, just get help.
And kind of related to that, you know, asking for help or asking for, you know, that support. So what resources do you think would be, or what questions do you think a student should ask maybe their school or their training program in terms of support that they could get for this family planning process or parenting journey?
Well, of course, you always want to ask about what kind of parental leave they have. And I'm a big fan of parental leave, not maternity leave, because I think programs that allow fathers to get parental leave when they have a child means that they're really tuned in, because my husband didn't get any parental leave when I was having my kids. It would have been so wonderful to have the both of us have 6 weeks to adjust to being parents, you know. It was hard for him to leave his new baby every day, you know, and not be with our little kids. And I also think parental leave, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I think parental leave is really important for women when you're looking for a job. It's easier to get hired somewhere where that group or that organization believes in parental leave, because then it doesn't matter if they're hiring a young male or a young female, because both people are going to ask for parental leave. If they don't offer that to the men, I think they're less likely to hire someone who looks like they may, you know, young, married, and maybe having kids, because that means that they're going to take maternity leave and disrupt the group's schedule dynamics for a while. Other things to ask. Yeah, ask like how many people in the past have been able to, you know, do you have other young mothers here, and maybe ask if you can talk to them about how, you know, easy it was to have kids when they were there. And if they say, oh, we've never had anyone have a baby in our program, that may be a big red flag. And you can either decide you're going to be a pioneer and teach them how to do this, or maybe it's not something you want to do in a program you might not want to be in if it doesn't feel like it's going to be conducive to having, you know, kids.
Awesome. So this is kind of the last question. So, looking back on your own journey throughout all of this, is there anything that you wish you had asked yourself, to your fellowship program or whomever during the training process about being a parent?
Yeah, I probably would have sought out my women colleagues who have had kids. I felt like at the time everyone was like doing it on their own. Like no one was asking for advice from anybody. I just felt like it was almost a sign of weakness if you had to ask around. Maybe you really couldn't do all this. It would have been great to have some, you know, support groups or like play dates or, nannies that you could share if you had a good babysitter and someone needed someone in a pinch. I think that just would have been nice to have some kind of group or organization of young moms and maybe even older moms like me. Like if I were working in a group and I had some young moms, I'd say, I'm a great grandma. I would love to, if you ever got stuck, I could come, help out with a babysitting now and then, just to have that kind of takes a village support, but at work, not just outside of work. That would be great. That would have been great to have felt like that I had some support, because at the time it just felt like you were, you had to do it all on your own. It was a lot of heavy lifting, but that would have been great to just have, you know, people that you could, ask to help out in a pinch, because that happens quite a bit.